The Gemini missions went deep into the heart of them and stayed there to make sure that these guys would be in it.
This brings me to Dr. Frank Greeny from Canada. From the pages of an article entitled Radiation Protection During Spaceflight in the 1983 Journal of Aviation, Space, and Environmental Medicine, he extracted this statement: dose equivalent rate from electrons in the heart of the Van Allen belt is 280,000 rad per day, which comes out, when I do the division, to 3.2 rads per second.
Interestingly, Plate claims that the Hubble's instruments must be shut down before entering the belts.
There is a dip in the Van Allen belts over the South Atlantic. It's called the South Atlantic Anomaly. And the shuttle goes through this every 7 or so orbits. Hubble goes through it every 7 orbits. They have to shut it down, they have to shut some of the instruments down because of the increased radiation.
This tends to suggest that the radiation levels are much too high for the electronics to cope with. Winderly claims that astronauts will always spend 30 minutes within the anomaly per an orbit lasting 90 minutes. Since the law of orbital mechanics applies to every spacecraft, the same must be so about Hubble if it truly does reach an altitude high enough to encounter this anomaly. So let's see, if 30 minutes within the 50 MeV anomaly is enough to damage the instruments on the Hubble, exactly how long can the astronauts expect to last spending twice that duration in radiation where the intensity is doubled? Phil Plate's notorious ignorance and self-contradictory slip-ups have actually compelled him to confirm a piece of evidence that suggests Apollo was fake, and unwittingly admitted that Apollo most likely didn't go into the Van Allen belts.
You're right. If you got to shut down instruments, for Christ's sake, it ain't no place to be.
John Malden once said that NASA predicted that astronauts could tolerate 200 rem if it were absorbed over several years. As just demonstrated, it would have been absorbed in less than several hours.
Hubble goes through it every 7 orbits. They have to shut it down, they have to shut some of the instruments down because of the increased radiation.
Looking up information for the Hubble Space Telescope, we find that it resides at an altitude of 589 kilometers, which does take it into the anomaly. Looking back at the shuttle flights that did reach a 500-kilometer altitude, this brings us to STS-61, which was launched in December 1993 to fix the Hubble. The EVAs of STS-61 were broadcast on CNN, and Ralph Renee was watching. On page 176 of his book, he states, "I tried hard to believe that only the Gemini missions and the Apollo manned landings were a hoax, and that all the rest of their exploits were true. But what he saw on television proved that NASA was faking space flights to this day. As we previously learned, to simulate the effects of an airless environment, Renee invented what he calls his space glove machine. It consists of a steel vacuum chamber into which a neoprene cotton-lined glove is inserted. The highest pressure his glove can take is 4.5 psi, which is slightly higher than the 4.3 psi used in the shuttle spacesuits.
What I do is I pull a vacuum in this chamber I created, and I have a glove inserted inside of it, and it was to prove that the flexibility they shown in their suits and gloves are impossible. Well, right now I can put my hand in there and I can move it every which way. I can grasp, I make a fist, I can lift up, down, but as soon as I throw this switch here, I evacuate the chamber.
As air is sucked out of the machine, the vacuum makes it more and more difficult to move the glove.
And this glove doesn't want to move. I can't bend it backwards. I can hardly force it down, and I can make a fist, but you can't hold it. And you could never how could you pick up small screws and bolts like they've shown them to do, or trigger a little tiny trigger on a camera? with the glove doing this.
In December of 1993, NASA claimed to have repaired the faulty mirror on the Hubble telescope. I had, and still have, a problem with this. Bright grammar school kids have been grinding telescope mirrors by hand for 200 years, and seldom do they fail to get it right. One can use a simple tin can pierced with many tiny holes for gauging the correct curvature during grinding. In May of 1990, a NASA shuttle carried and deployed into space an incredibly expensive toy that had already cost $1.5 billion plus. Months later, NASA reluctantly informed us that the Hubble's mirror was not ground properly. That toy was backed by a full-time staff of 100 scientists and engineers, and none had ever checked the mirror before launching?
School kids know how to take the aberration out of a telescope, for Christ's sake. Don't you tell me that got past their inspectors.
NASA also mentioned that the Hubble had a wide-angle planetary camera attachment. My question was, why? The only planet too close to study without a wide-angle lens is Earth. Which leads us to the happy thought that there was never a thing wrong with the Hubble and the CIA used it as a spy eye. This also makes no sense. Eric Chason, author of The Hubble Wars, reports that during Operation Desert Storm, the military had at least 6 keyhole space telescopes that were operational. Some were as big as the Hubble. They tested all of these, but forgot the Hubble. Sure they did.
They have all these keyholes up there. They're in service. They fly around. They look over in Iraq. They look over at the Ayatollah. They spy down on Gaddafi. They're looking at me, and probably you too.
That's what first occurred to me.
Yeah. And so there can be nothing drastically wrong with that Hubble. That's just, they want more time for whatever their reasons. And then they give it to the scientists once in a blue moon who never look at the moon and never look at close in. They look to the end of the universe, because by doing that they can say anything they want, nobody can call them down. So they're all great scientific gurus. But if they looked at something closer, somebody else could say, hey, that's wrong. No, we're looking to the end of the universe.
As 1993 ended, our TV screens were flooded by pictures of the shuttle crew working on the Hubble. I have been a mechanic all my life, and you simply can't work heavy fasteners with heavy gloves on. Yet, there they were in the full vacuum of space, replacing the equipment.
Up there fixing the Hubble and playing around with number 10 screws.
Not only were the suits not ballooned, but neither were the gloves. I also saw one short film of one of the astronauts with his hand limply bent down over the edge of a console. My space glove proves that this can't happen, but the pictures exist. As we learned from watching Edward White walking in space, the ballooning of spacesuits will be evident and very obvious. Now compare that video with these shots of shuttle astronauts supposedly repairing the Hubble. The Michelin Man effect of any fabric spacesuit precludes any real work being done in open space. I believe the Hubble was being worked on with the space doors shut and the bay pressurized, or the tapes were synthesized underwater in the crystal clear pools, where the astronauts practiced for space missions. Or they could have developed an armored articular suit that is covered with fabric in disguise. This is not likely, because the hands can't be armoured and then must end in hooks. This may have been no more than the slip of the tongue, but at 5:30 Friday morning, December 10, 1993, I was watching the release of the repaired Hubble on CNN, An announcer named Bob was describing it and said the words, "Command the shuttle doors to open." It should also be noted, although the shuttle EVA gloves are by all means an improvement to those used on Apollo, the more recent shuttle missions have tested glove modifications to improve gripping and reduce suit puncture. Such modifications include stitching turtle skin patches into the fingertips. Turtle skin is a tightly woven vectrum that has a higher resistance to puncture. As NASA's Spaceflight.com reported, crew and engineering requested the addition of a thin RTV strip to the top of the patch to increase grip.